How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pride Report. My name is Noah Holley, and I'm here with Sean Bock. How's it going today, Sean?
Noah, it's going well, my man. NCAA tournament time, best time of the year, so let's get
Absolutely.
to it, baby. How you been?
I've been doing great. Thank you for asking. So today, me and Sean are going to be breaking down the West region of the NCAA tournament. Here is a look at the bracket. We're going to start with some initial thoughts on the region. Sean, let's get to you first. What are some of your takeaways from how the West bracket turned out?
Well, I think this bracket is pretty much wide open. I think any 1 through 5 team can make a run, and I have a reason to believe that we can see multiple double-digit seeded teams in the Sweet 16. Looking forward, I don't really think Xavier, the number one seed, will come out of this bracket. Got blown out by Villanova twice, and they've also had some closer wins against the lower tier Big East teams like Georgetown, St. John. So I think behind them, North Carolina probably has the best shot at winning it, but I think this whole side of the bracket is wide open.
Yeah, I think that the West is probably the weakest bracket this year by far. Like you said, Xavier is the most vulnerable one seed. I would actually say that they're one of the weakest one seeds of all time. I think I saw something like that on ESPN's BPI page yesterday, that they have the lowest BPI of any one seed ever. I think that UNC and Gonzaga have a clear path to meet each other in the Elite Eight. Another team that I like is Houston. I think that this is a second weekend team. I said that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to stick with it. If you don't know much about Houston, I would advise that you do some research before filling out your bracket, because this is an elite college basketball team. The Cougars are very good on both sides of the ball, and the backcourt duo of Corey Davis Jr. and Rob Gray is a handful. Rob Gray, in particular, is an absolute stud. He was amazing on Sunday against Cincinnati in the AAC final. But it feels inevitable to me that Gonzaga and UNC will meet in the final. I really think that we will see a national championship rematch. Now let's take a look at our favorites and sleepers. We have 4 categories here. We have our favorite to win the region. We have our sleeper to win the region. We have our deep sleeper, a team that we don't necessarily think is going to make the Final Four, but is definitely going to be a tough out. And finally, we have our top seed that we believe is going to suffer a surprising early exit. Sean, how about you start us off?
All right, so I'm going to start with the favorite. I think North Carolina, the number 2 seed favorite, they've been playing pretty well lately. Other than their hiccup in the ACC championship against Virginia, they've been really playing well. They have one of the best starting fives in the country. Their bench is a little bit worrisome for me. Garrison Brooks is really the only true guy that plays close to double-digit minutes.
Yeah.
So that's something to look out for. If they continue to play that thin lineup, I'm going to see how they can really stay energized to make a deep run, because that's kind of just raising a couple red flags for me. But overall, I think talent-wise and just playing together as a team, I think North Carolina is the best. And going to the sleeper, Gonzaga, I like that backcourt with Josh Perkins, and then down low too with Julian Tilly and Rui Hachimura. Those guys are really good, and I like their schedule they have. I mean, UNC Greensboro, that should be a win. Ohio State too, I think they match up pretty well against the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes, I was very high on throughout the season, but I'm no Dan Dockage, so I don't really know. I don't really feel comfortable with them as a Sweet 16 or beyond team. So with that, I'm going to take the Zags. I think they can make it a run to the Elite Eight. And then my deep sleeper, I'm going to go with Mizzou. The return of Michael Porter Jr. really has me excited. Jordan Barnett, the second leading scorer for the Tigers, is suspended for the first game, so that'll probably play a difference. I think they should get past Florida State regardless, but who knows, really, it's March, anything can happen. Jonte Porter and Cassius Robertson have been the difference makers, especially Robertson. He's been the best player for the Missouri all year long. So it'll be interesting to see how he can gel with Michael Porter Jr. They're going to have to be taken. Michael Porter Jr., especially like we saw against Georgia, was taking a lot of shots. Wasn't necessarily making them, but probably disrupted Cassius Robertson's flow a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been the man all season. So the chemistry with the return of Porter Jr. is definitely going to be something to watch. I think with a couple days of practice, it'll be fine, but we'll see. And then the highest seed for an early upset, I'm going to go with Xavier. Round of 32 to Missouri. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Trayvon Blewett, JP McCura, those guys, Kaiser Gates. They're a really good ball club, but I just think they got screwed with their round of 32 matchup. I think they would have been better off being a number 2 seed and maybe seeing like North Carolina or someone like there moving up to the number 1 seed. But I think overall, just some of the losses that I talked about earlier are kind of hard for me to gauge, and I don't really see a scenario where they can make a super deep run. I mean, I know I'm kind of pushing it with the Missouri beating them in the round of 32, but I think it's a safe bet for any upset. So that's what I got.
All right. My favorite to win this bracket has to be the defending champs, North Carolina. The Heels are as potent of an offensive team as you will find in college basketball, but the veteran leadership and March experience of senior stars Joel Berry and Theo Pinson is what really sells me on this team's chances to return to the Final Four for a third consecutive year. And as for my sleeper, I'm going to say Houston. I talked about them a little earlier. As much as I like Michigan, I think Houston is the best bet to win that pod. Don't know how I feel about them matching up with UNC. However, my deep sleeper is Missouri as well. With Michael Porter back, the Tigers have a ceiling of a second weakened team. Granted, if Missouri had made a run in the SEC tournament and Porter had gotten a few games under his belt, Missouri's chances to upset Xavier would be significantly higher, but instead, I find myself on the fence as Porter is extremely rusty and somewhat of an awkward fit in Missouri's system at the moment. I thought you made a great point, Sean, about how it appeared that Cassius Robertson was off with a Porter back in the lineup. I definitely think that Porter is disrupting Missouri's system. That kind of worries me about Missouri, but like I said, I think the ceiling for this team is high with Porter. I'm not going to deny that the Tigers are a very dangerous adversary with him in the lineup. And finally, the top seed that I'm putting on upset alert is Ohio State. Now, I do think that the Buckeyes are going to beat South Dakota State in the first round, but we all know what Mike Daum is capable of. He has yet to win an NCAA tournament game in 3 tries, but this is arguably South Dakota State's best team in the Daum era. You know that he's going to have a big game, so OSU will have their hands full for sure. And now, as for our West brackets, let's start with you, Sean. What is going on with yours?
So the first round, Xavier versus Texas Southern. I got to go with Xavier. Let's just give a quick moment to recognize Mike Davis at Texas Southern. Those guys lost their first 13 games, and now they're in this NCAA tournament, so that's pretty dang cool. I think Xavier's going to ruin that party pretty quickly. Missouri versus Florida State. Obviously, I talked about Mizzou and how I'm pretty high on them. Florida State, a team that lost a lot coming into this year. A couple pros. I think Mizzou's going to pull that one out. And then Mike Daum versus Ohio State. That's going to be a really fun matchup. A lot of people are going to be talking about Daum throughout this week, but I think Ohio State just has too much. And then Gonzaga and UNC Greensboro. Just got to go with the Zags. I think they'll be a little bit too much for Greensboro. Love that front court of Killian Tilly and Rui Hachimura, like I said. And then let's go back up to Xavier Mizzou. I like Mizzou in this one. The return of Michael Porter Jr. kind of amps this one up a little bit and hypes me up. That's just so cool to see him come back after a pretty serious injury and possibly make a run at the NCAA tournament. So that'd be awesome to see him do that, and I think he will. And then Ohio State Gonzaga, I gotta go with the Zags. I think that the backcourt duo, like I've talked about many times before, is just gonna be a little bit too much. OSU, I respect totally what Chris Holtmann has done this year. Kata Bates-Diop has been amazing. This whole team, how they bought into the culture there in Columbus, and I just don't think they'll get it done this one though. But with that, Mizzou and Gonzaga, this is a really interesting matchup. I think just Gonzaga, Mark Few, a little bit more experience. Obviously, people are going to be hyped up about Porter Brothers making a run, but I just think experience wins in this case. So I'm going to take the Zags, put them in the Elite Eight.
All right. Now, as for the bottom half of your bracket.
All right, so with Houston, San Diego State, I know you said Houston is a very good team, but San Diego State has also been playing very well. I think they've won 9 straight, and they've beaten Nevada twice and Boise State, who is an NCAA tournament level team. But I think I'm just going to take Houston. I like that Rob Gray and Corey Davis. And Michigan and Montana, I think Michigan's going to take that one easily. John Beilein knows how to make a run in March. Texas A&M Providence. Kind of disappointed with how Texas A&M has played this year. Top 10 team coming into the year with Tyler Davis and Robert Williams coming back. Obviously, point guard play has been a disaster for them, so I'm going to take Providence. North Carolina Lipscomb, that won't be close, so I'm going to take the Tar Heels. And then Houston versus Michigan is a really interesting matchup. The backcourt competition is going to be really fierce. I think Michigan's going to get a victory. I just think Mo Wagner is going to have a great game, take over.
Mm-hmm.
Providence, North Carolina. I think that respect for Ed Cooley and what they've done this year as well. Cartwright Cartwright's a great player, but I think experience wins in March, and that's going to be what takes the Tar Heels past Providence. And then we're going to have a Michigan UNC matchup. I think with that, I think, man, this one's tough, but I want to say the Wolverines are going to win. I really like this North Carolina team, but it's just something about John Beeline and his team in March that makes me predict them to get past the Tar Heels. I don't know what it is, whether they have the right pieces or they just know how to flip the switch. But I think that's going to be a great game, and I think Michigan's going to get past them. So with that, Gonzaga and Michigan in the Elite Eight. This is a very interesting matchup. No team really has an advantage matchup-wise, but I think Michigan's going to squeak it out. It's going to be a heck of a game, up and down. Two great offensive teams, two very good balanced teams too, with great big men and great guard play. But I think it's going to come down to the wire, and I think Michigan's going to squeak it out.
I'm going to quickly run through my bracket. I have Xavier winning their first round matchup, of course. Then I have Missouri over Florida State. I think that Florida State got in on resume alone. I don't think that they're that good. Then I have Ohio State over South Dakota State, like I mentioned earlier in the show. I think Ohio State will win, but you cannot deny how dangerous of an opponent South Dakota State is. They're definitely going to push Ohio State to the brink, mainly because of how good Mike Daum is. He is one of the hardest to defend players in all of college basketball. Then I have Gonzaga over North Carolina Greensboro. No insult intended to Greensboro, but I think that they are the easiest draw for any 4 seed. So I think Gonzaga's going to win that game. Then I have Xavier over Missouri. I know I said Missouri was going to be my deep sleeper earlier in the show, but I have them making an early exit. I have no idea what to expect from this team because the one game that they have played with Porter in the lineup didn't really go that well. Missouri as a whole was kind of thrown off by his sudden and abrupt return to the lineup. With that being said, I think Missouri is still a very, very dangerous team because Porter is so talented no matter how rusty he looked. He's going to have an opportunity to do some great things this March. But I have Xavier here. Then I have Gonzaga over Ohio State. As for the bottom half of the bracket, Houston over San Diego State, and then Michigan over Montana. I have Providence over Texas A&M. I feel like those 2 seeds should have been flip-flopped, but of course the committee apparently does not look at how a team finished the season, because if they did, then Oklahoma wouldn't be in the field, and Providence would be a higher seed because they just look great in the Big East tournament. And then UNC over Lipscomb. Then I have Houston over Michigan. And then as for Houston and North Carolina, I'm going to go with North Carolina. I think that the Heels are going to have a fairly smooth path to the Elite Eight. And then North Carolina over Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. I think North Carolina will be headed to a 3rd consecutive Final Four.